live. All right, let's just make sure we are live here. Okay, it says live. We are live. Let's go to the webcam here just for a quick introduction. Hello everyone, this is John Reed here from Learn to Stargaze, and the reason that I decided to hold this impromptu live stream is because I realized that it is Amazon Early Access Day. I'm not sure what that means. I never heard about this like sort of Amazon Prime Day until this week, but apparently a lot of telescopes are on sale, and I really just want to go and we'll screen share Amazon's page here and walk through some of these telescope deals. And I'm going to experiment with a couple new features of YouTube Live. Again, I'm fairly new to this, where I'm going to try to get the chat to show up on the screen. So as people sign in here, let's see. There we go. So I'm sharing the screen and we can see the chat. And I see Michael says howdy, and howdy to Mrs. Stargaze. Yes, and that is something I also want to talk about. So let me go back to the webcam. Yeah, so I promised my subscribers that when we reached 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, that we would sell merch like this, and maybe like this. Now this hat's from a brewery. It just happens to have a galaxy on it. Anyway, so I tasked that to Mrs. Stargaze. So Mrs. Stargaze took that on as a challenge to come up with some merch for Learn to Stargaze. And she just stepped out of the room here. Let's go back to this. So anyway, we finally got a merch store online, and I think one person actually bought something on here. So anyway, to find the merch store, we go to learntostargaze.com. Here, I'll go back to the homepage. Homepage needs some work. But anyway, this is basically where I stored all the, the YouTube videos and series, the astronomy challenge that I did for COVID and whatnot. But anyway, so over here, we have our merch store. And because, this isn't a profit center for us, we make money on books because I'm primarily an author, not a YouTuber. Even though I know you guys love the channel. But yeah, so I'm primarily an author. And so we just wanted to create this merch store as a gift to the subscribers. And so with that in mind, what we were able to do, and this uses, I believe, Printify behind the scenes to do the shipping, is we're able to get the prices down super, super low. So because it's not a profit center for us, I'm not looking to make serious money on this. So basically, we're getting these prices down as much as we can to basically get you an awesome product, without breaking the bank. So our t-shirts here are $15.95, for example, which is, I think this is the one I'm wearing right now. And I guess there's different prices for different sizes, maybe. Anyway, but basically starting at $15.95, so definitely super reasonable compared to other folks that, use their merch store as a profit center. I think these are really cool. These are some shoes that my wife designed here. And interestingly, these are some moons that I painted for my grandmother. She wanted moon paintings. And so Jen made shoes based on those paintings and our logo, which I'm really excited about to see people wearing these. Anyway, so that's the news. Yeah, definitely say hello in the chat to let me know that you're signed in. I see some people here, including Anthony. Good to see you on the chat there, Anthony. Glad you could tune in. Anyway, oh yeah, and was it K. Michael who came up with Mrs. Stargaze? So today I told Mrs. Stargaze here to come up with Mrs. Stargaze the t-shirt. And here it is. And I haven't even seen this before. Okay, so we have pink and blue. Yeah, that's that's pretty cool. Not sure if we can get you a chunk of the royalties of that, if that was you, Michael, but who came up with Mrs. Stargaze. But we love it. Again, though, we're not trying to make make money off this. This is for you guys. This is having merch was a gift for the subscribers, just for being awesome. Anyway, again, that's learntostargaze.com. Go over here and click store, and there's lots of good stuff. Oh, I haven't even seen these. Jen's putting some new stuff on here all the time. There's the the future is looking up. Okay. In other news, I was just checking on Amazon and I noticed that 110 things to see with a telescope took over the #1 spot in the telescope section of Amazon, which is really cool. So originally, and I guess, yeah, so this book used to hold that spot. The paperback version of this book used to hold the #1 spot in telescopes. But I'm guessing Amazon just moved it to a different category. And now, yeah, so 110 things to see with a telescope hardcover has taken over that #1 spot. So we are super excited, to have that little #1 bestseller. That doesn't mean we're selling a ton of them, but we're selling, a few. This is great. It's great. That having that little sticker there can really boost your sales, especially coming into the holiday season. And yeah, if you don't have this book already, people love this book. And I can grab a copy off the shelf here. And the reason they like it so much, just for anyone that doesn't have it already, is that let me go to full screen here, webcam. The reason they like it so much is because everything's on one page. So it's basically one page per Messier item, and it shows you what it should look like through your telescope, where to find it, and to log your observations so that you can get a certificate from either the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada or the Astronomical League in the United States. This book is also available in French. So that was about a half year project for me, but now it's in French because we are in Canada. Yours will not have this bar across it that says proof, not for resale. Anyway, yeah. Okay. So again, the reason we're here is because this is sort of like an Amazon Prime Day. Let me go scoot over here. Just bought the coffee mug and teddy bear for wife. Well, thank you so much. That is awesome. I think you are the first person to, I think I saw that sale. I got an email that someone bought something in the store and I was like, wow, that means that the store is open. And functions. So that is awesome. Again, everything's very automated through Printify, which is the service that my wife found to use. And so hopefully the things just ship out, and the shipping is hopefully quick, and you get your goods. Okay. So yeah. So the reason we are here today is to talk about this Prime Early Access sale. Which ends at midnight. So today is the last day for this. I don't know if they're having a Prime Day later. But what I realized is that a lot of the telescopes on here are on sale. But we need to talk about that because just because they're on sale doesn't mean it's a good value. And so for anyone that watches this channel, I review a lot of telescopes, and the reason I review them is not because I, get anything out of it from the company. The reason I review them is because a lot of people have them and don't know how to use them. So I'm basically just demonstrating these telescopes. So I actually have a lot of bad telescopes as well, and I've reviewed them sort of neutrally. I don't necessarily say it's bad because I don't want to get anyone out of the hobby, but the approach is, if you have this telescope, here's how to use it, here's how to get the best out of it. But in every video, we do this test. Does the telescope align to these minimum requirements for a beginner telescope? And the 5 tests are, just to review, can the telescope effortlessly move left and right and up and down? Does the telescope stay exactly where you put it when you let go? You'd be surprised how many telescopes can't do this. can the telescope effortlessly point high in the sky, which generally means if it's a refractor, it has to include a 90-degree diagonal. Newtonians typically don't have this problem. Does the telescope, I just typed this out, have at least 4 inches of aperture? And does the telescope come with a red dot or bullseye finder? Yeah. Okay. Oh, I realize this is behind the chat here. Boop. Anyway, so those are the 5 tests. Let me see if I can scroll up a little bit and hide that in the corner. All right. Yeah. And so if we look at the telescopes that show up in Amazon, if we just literally type in telescope, you'll see that all of these telescopes fail almost all of these tests, which is kind of sad, because if I were designing a web page that sold telescopes, oh, Anthony, I just see that you ordered something. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, got distracted there. Yeah, so all of these telescopes here fail all of these tests. And that's pretty sad, because if I were designing a search algorithm for telescopes, you know, I would hope that you would have telescopes that meet some minimum quality, and you would have to look harder for the ones that don't meet that minimum standard. And we can, you know, go scope by scope really and just show you why these fail. So if we just look at the first result here, which is 24,000 reviews, I guarantee those are not real. There's some review farm out there clicking iPhones with a robot. Yeah. So this telescope, can the telescope effortlessly move up and down? This telescope's on a camera tripod, and it's super lightweight. So no, it's not going to move up and down and left and right easily. Does the telescope stay where you put it when you let go? No way. I've had a couple of these, not even, like, it'll bounce around by like 5 degrees easily when you let go. Can the telescope effortlessly point high in the sky? No, it doesn't come with a 90-degree diagonal, and your telescope, you know, mount here is going to run into your tripod, so it fails that test. Does it have a bullseye finder? No, it's got this finder scope that probably doesn't even function. Does it have 4 inches of aperture? No. So this telescope, I think Lisa Fanning might have had this telescope to start with. These, I guess you'd say it's Skyer telescopes. So this one might show good views. I've never tried it. The issue with this, again, is it doesn't have a 90-degree diagonal. So at least I don't believe it does. And it's a little bit on the small side. It's 90 millimeters of aperture. That's just shy of 4 inches. But again, you don't have any real control over this mount. So and you don't have a red dot finder. It's got a finder scope. So this is probably the least bad of the telescopes on the page. But again, you would need to upgrade it in a couple ways to get it to, meet the minimum requirements. This one, similar to the first one, fail, 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 fail. That one's the Skyer again. Fail. $1,400. This is actually a basic imaging scope for wide field, so I'm not sure why it's showing up here. Yeah, so fail, 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 fail. What's this? I'm guessing these are based on my prior searches. These weren't showing up earlier. So this is not basically in the big, you're not going to buy this as a gift for someone. That's a triplet apochromatic. Apochromatic means you've got 3 sets of lenses, and they're taking the different colors in the spectrum of light, and they're making sure that they come in focus all at the same focal length. And so that's a quite, you're paying $1,000 generally for any telescope with Apo in the name. And yeah, but we're getting distracted. That's not a beginner scope. And I'm guessing those are custom advertisements for me. Yeah, it takes a while before we get down to anything that's, decent here. So, okay, so we've got a NexStar SLT, and I don't think this one is Bird Jones. Now, Bird Jones, typically you have these Newtonians, and they've got an extra lens or a Barlow here in the focuser. And just to point out, I tend to say Bird Jones all the time, and that just, there's there's a different system that was originally Burd-Jones, but the terminology just came to mean bar-load Newtonian. If you were to Google it and really dive into the forums, there's actually a different system where Burd-Jones actually works. But if I say Burd-Jones, I'm generally referring to a doubling of the focal length by putting an extra lens up here in the focuser. And usually that's done to compensate for a spherical mirror as opposed to a parabolic mirror. So apparently spherical mirrors are cheaper to make, but the quality is worse. And you can make up for a lower quality of mirror by extending the focal length. And so that's what Burd-Jones does. And the way you know that a telescope is Burd-Jones is by looking at the focal ratio. Now, can't really see it here, but I don't think this one is. Just looking for the focal ratio. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so f5, that's low. If this were like f9, then you could tell that they're doing something fishy, because Newtonians are generally all about f, 4 or 5, maybe 6 if it's one of those 6-inch Dobsonians or something. Yeah. Although that's actually a pretty good value for this scope. Yeah, so it's got the NexStar go-to mount. Nice. Yeah. Anyway, any questions about these scopes? Just throw them in the chat. I got a question here. What's your favorite place to look through? What is your favorite place to look through a telescope? I would say that any star parties. So the Nova East Star Party for me is the big one in Nova Scotia. And so that's where I usually just, at least this year, I just took my Dobsonian. I didn't take anything with a computer, and I didn't take anything with a camera. But I did use the Star Sense. So that's where you take your iPhone and put it on top, and it will, the iPhone tells you where to push the telescope. And so that is something that might be on sale with this Prime Day. So let's see. Star Sense. Yeah. So basically I took this telescope here and I ripped off the Star Sense. So this is an example of one of those ones that's Burd-Jones here. And so this mount fails the, we go back to our list here. Does this telescope stay exactly where you put it, where you let go? This mount is not sturdy enough to pass that test. And does it effortlessly move left and right and up and down? It does not effortlessly move up and down. So I got this telescope, I reviewed it, and then I pulled the Star Sense off and put it on the Dob, because the Star Sense system here is amazing. Yeah. But in terms of the quality of this telescope, I recently just did a video where I compared this against Explore Scientific's small Newtonian, and the quality versus like the Omni refractor was, quite low. So I think that's the problem with the small Newtonians in general, is the mirror. If we have a picture of the front of it. I was going to bring a telescope up so I'd have it as a model, but I don't. Let me just Google one here. We just do Newtonian telescope. So in a Newtonian telescope, you have this central mirror here, which is an obstruction. So the light coming in has to go around this central mirror to hit, the primary mirror at the back. And with small Newtonians, when I've compared them side by side, I lost a lot of contrast. Now that really matters in the city. The Newtonian, compared to the refractor, could not keep up. Like I wish I had the images open, but yeah. So it's hard to just explain or without showing you a picture just how much better a refractor is than these small Newtonians. So the one I was using, Omni 102 AZ, was just this Costco one, and it was blowing these Newtonians out of the water. And the Newtonians even had a larger collecting area, and I think it was because the small Newtonians versus the larger ones are just losing contrast by having this big obstruction here with the secondary mirror. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so somebody even asked, Newtonians are preferred for deep sky observation. So large Newtonians give you a better bang for your buck in terms of deep sky. So like if you really want what's called a light bucket, you want a Dobsonian. A bigger Dobsonian. Let's see if we can pull one up here. Yeah. Typically the best, entry level deep sky telescope is, here, I'll push this off to the side here. One of these Dobsonians. So like typically you would start with 6 or 8 inch as a beginner. And these telescopes really draw in the deep sky objects well. And here the ratio of that secondary mirror to the whole collecting area is a lot smaller than with the tinier Newtonians. Yeah, so his question is 130 millimeter aperture enough for deep sky? Yeah, it's enough. But I think because, and this is just sort of new for me because most recently I've been testing a lot of telescopes side by side under the same conditions, and you've got a resolution advantage from going bigger, like from 100 millimeters to 130 millimeters, but because the Newtonian has that obstruction, you're losing contrast versus a refractor of a smaller size. So and I think that's why if we look at StarSense, where's StarSense here? So they've got the 130 here and the 110. So I feel like the performance of this 130 millimeter telescope here and this 110, or sorry, the 102, which is a refractor, are about the same because, again, your Newtonian is losing contrast from the central mirror, whereas a refractor is not, even though the Newtonian is going to give you a slightly higher resolution. Yeah. So someone's asking, they want something mid-price for deep sky observation. I mean, mid-price could mean thousands of dollars, so it's kind of hard to say. Someone else is saying, is Explore Scientific 80 good for beginners? So again, we have to compare it against this test. 80 millimeters, the 80 stands for millimeters, is about 3 inches. So the minimum requirement that I usually use is, does the telescope have 4 inches of aperture? And so that would be below, that. And I'm not sure which Explore Scientific, 80 millimeter Explore Scientific you're talking about. But it would have to meet all these other requirements as well. That said, Explore Scientific does a great job with their beginner scopes, and a lot of them do sort of pass these tests. So another question here we've got: what do you think of buying an 8-inch collapsible Dobsonian versus a regular tube? Yeah, I mean, the big thing about Dobsonians is they're hard to transport. I know people love the collapsible Dobs. It's just there's a price difference you pay for that. Okay, another question here. I get what you mean. My small refractor gets way better contrast than my 5-inch Newtonian, although the Newtonian has more stars. Yeah, so Newtonian is going to have more light collecting power. If typically if you look at that, the whole area of the mirror, you're collecting more light. But yeah, contrast, especially I guess from light polluted skies, that contrast really helps get the stars to pop out from the background sky because they're almost the same color in the city. Now that might flip. I could probably do this experiment again. I probably should, from dark skies where I really compare Newtonian and a refractor side by side on a number of different targets, because it's going to change depending on what you're looking at too. So like if you're looking at double stars that are typically bright, you're going to have a different experience than if you're looking at star clusters where you have a lot of pinpoints of dim light. And then it's going to be a different experience again if you're looking at a nebula, which is an extended object that's not necessarily that much difference in brightness than the sky background. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You can see the comments on the screen. That's great. I don't know if I missed any here. Yeah, how about the Explorer Scientific First Light AR127? Yeah, so I've said in a bunch of videos that one thing to look for is the 127 and 114. Those ones typically have the Bird Jones. I don't think Explorer Scientific does that, though. They're the sort of the exception to that rule. Let me Google that real quick here on the screen. Explorer Scientific First Light AR127. Yep. Let's see if I can just pull it up here. Oh, is that the Newtonian or the refractor? What's its AR? Let's see. Oh, if that's the refractor, yeah, for visual observation, that'd be incredible. So that's this guy. I had the 102 version of this and absolutely loved it. And I have the triplet version. And we talked about that before, earlier in the video. So doublet means you've got two pieces of glass. Correct. So you're correcting for the different wavelengths of light coming into focus at different focal lengths. And so doublet would correct red and blue effectively. But you still have some colors that don't come in focus at the same focal length. So if you're using this for astrophotography, taking really long exposures, you're going to notice. You're going to notice that your stars are bloated and have other artifacts in the images. But for visual observing, especially when you're looking at deep sky objects, you're not going to notice. And then this telescope is going to perform extremely well. Now, the thing is, they're not cheap. Like, you have to buy a mount. So this would typically go on a Twilight 1 mount. Yeah. And so, again, not for astrophotography. You would want one that says triplet or apo or apochromatic. Yeah, so this is the one that I had here. I paid $3.99 for it maybe 8 years ago. But yeah, incredible. Someone's asking about chromatic aberration between refractors and Newtonians, the same aperture. Yeah, Newtonians technically shouldn't have any chromatic aberration because with a mirror, all the wavelengths come into focus at the same focal length. With a lens, you've got whatever that is, Snell's law. So the different as the lens bends the light. So a mirror is just reflecting light, but a lens is bending light, and the different wavelengths bend at different they bend a different amount. And so yeah, so Newtonians, since Newtonians are reflectors, they don't have chromatic aberration. Newtonians have what's called coma, which is a different issue in that their field is not typically flat. So sometimes the stars on the edge of the image, they'll look like little comets. And so that can be the downside with Newtonians. Someone says hi. Hi. You might see me squinting over here. It's because my secondary monitor is really small. Okay. Yeah. But these StarSense, like this would be a lot of fun. It's funny because they're discounting it down to the price it was sort of before inflation. So they've got the normal price here at $469, and I'm on the US Amazon. Yeah, discounting it down to the price that it was at, maybe 6 months ago. It's pretty funny. And now StarSense is on a Dobsonian, and so this is really incredible. So I made one of these out of my telescope. It's at a 12-inch Dobsonian like this, and I put StarSense on it, and just an incredible experience. So to be able to just push the scope to the targets and not really have to think about, where they are. And yeah. But again, the 80 millimeter one, these LT80, that fails. If we go back to our test, that fails most of these tests, and so does the 114 here. It fails these tests. So it's really only the DX versions, this DX130, the DX102, that pass the tests. This is interesting. So here you've got an SCT telescope, Schmidt-Cassegrain, with StarSense. And the challenge here, now I haven't tried this one, but you've got a massive, massive focal length here on these telescopes. And so that gives you a really, really high natural magnification for a given eyepiece. And even with StarSense, I think it might be kind of hard to point. And so StarSense gets you, within about a degree and of your target. And if you've got a lot of magnification, you might still have trouble finding your targets. But this looks like a cool system. You need to give it a try. I would just worry that your pointing accuracy would be lacking. And the Dobsonians, oh, so much fun. Such a great system. Just sad that, so this is a 10-inch Dobsonian. I remember in, gosh, when did I move to Canada? 2016. These were only $3.99. So that's some serious, serious inflation. Of course, they're adding StarSense here. Yeah. Someone's saying DX is the way to go. Yeah, if you're a beginner, DX is the way to go. Do you get power after seeking stars? That seems like a joke. Like the Highlander. I haven't seen that movie since the 80s, but yeah. I don't know if you get any power from seeing stars. Here's one that a lot of people like, the Celestron NeXYZ. So this is a Mac telescope. They say these have pixie dust in them. So Macs are sort of like Schmidt-Cassegrains in that they have a really long focal length. But for whatever reason, the contrast in these is just really, really good. And I've been able to pick out galaxies. I have a 90mm one, so that violates my sort of 4-inch rule. But yeah, that's a great deal for a Mac telescope. And then you have the go-to. Although again, you've got this little bit of a mix of a telescope that has a lot of magnification with a mount that may not have the pointing accuracy to keep up with it. But I do hear good things about this mount, but it's just an interesting combination here. Okay. So here's some scopes. This is one of the 114. You can see here's an example of one not to buy. This one fails almost every test, and I think it's Burr-Jones as well. So if we look at the focal ratio, see if they have it here. They don't call it out specifically by the looks of it, at least not in big font that I can see on my big screen here. Yeah. Anyway. So again, 114, you really got to watch that focal ratio to make sure that it's 5 and not 9. And I think this telescope here, the Celestron 114 LCM, that has Burr-Jones in it as well. And so does this Comtron 114. So again, the quality of those telescopes is just going to be, rough. Someone's saying, sir, I'm a beginner, so Newtonian 130mm aperture is ideal. Depends on the brand. I don't know if there's any 130s that are Burr-Jones, but yeah, so like the 130 StarSense would be really great. That's where is it? This one right here. But again, if we look at the minimum requirements, does the telescope point effortlessly up and down and left and right? And one of the reasons I put this in here is because there's a type of telescope that doesn't move up and down and left and right at all. And that's this telescope right here. So this is a really popular telescope. It's also terrible. And so, here's the telescope watch, not recommended, giant font. And the reason is it really fails that test hard. They're really challenging to use for beginners. And this is a 130, and now I can't speak to the image quality. I'd have to read this article again. Oh yeah, also you need to think about collimation when you're talking Newtonian. So you need to learn how to do that. And that's, where you're making sure that this back mirror and the primary mirror and the secondary mirror are perfectly lined up with each other and with the eyepiece. Okay. So yeah, so there's good 130mm options, and there's bad 130mm options. So I don't know if that helps. Really, it's you know, type specific. New question. What do you think of the new Orion Observer lineup? I got the 134 and I've had a good time with it with assistance of your 50 book. Which 50 book? I've got a bunch of those. Anyway, but I don't really know how it compares since there are no reviews. Let me look that up. Orion Observer telescopes. Oop. Spelled telescopes wrong there. And which one? 134. I haven't heard of a 134 before. Okay. Yeah, so if we look at this telescope and again compare it against our 5 tests here, can the telescope effortlessly move up and down, left and right? No. Does the telescope stay where you put it when you let go? Probably. Can the telescope point high in the sky? Yeah, Newtonians are kind of a pain like this because on the EQ mount, when you move from one part of the sky to another, you need to loosen these 2 bolts here and spin it around. And that could be a massive pain. You also have to know how to polar align this scope. Where's my list? Yeah. Does it have 4 inches of aperture? Well, yeah. 134 millimeters is whatever that is, 5.5 inches. Does the telescope come with a red dot or bullseye finder? No. Oh, that finder scope looks terrible. So if that's the telescope that you have, you know, it passes one of the tests, that one of the minimum requirements. That doesn't mean you can't use it. Doesn't mean you can't have fun with it. And it doesn't mean it won't offer good views. It just means that there's a lot of challenges you'll have to overcome. Okay. Question here. Oh, 50 things to do with a small telescope. Yeah, people really have fun with that book. So that's this one. Oh, that's like I got like a misprinted copy here. Yeah, look at this. They're like the logo is right on the side of the page. Anyway. Do we have any English ones? Yeah, when it originally came out, it looked like this. And I feel like when I changed it and gave it the new font, the sales actually dropped. It was kind of curious. Like people actually liked the like more self-published look of the book. Anyway, and then that one's in 10 languages. So like Brazilian Portuguese, European Portuguese. Anyway, my wife, oh, Mrs. Stargaze just showed up. She's laughing at me. Okay. Okay, someone's asking about Watcher Evolux. Let me pull that one up. Oh, wow, I cannot type today at all. It's because I'm like typing over my homework and my textbooks and stuff here from grad school. Okay. Watcher Evolux 62 ED. That doesn't seem like a visual scope. Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so this is it's a doublet that's an apo. So that means it's using 2 lenses and it's probably using special glass or maybe 2 different types of glass to get all, you know, to get apochromatic performance. So yeah, so this would be an awesome telescope. It's not really for looking through though. You wouldn't necessarily put an eyepiece in this. This is more, it seems like it's designed for wide field astrophotography. Now I guess you could use it visually from dark skies to look at star clusters and stuff. But see, like they have it mounted here for astrophotography. But yeah, it'd be a great little scope. I guess the alternative, be an alternative to the Sharp Star. So it'd be interesting to look at, I forget what that website is, Astrobin, I think, where people post the astro photos and they tell you what telescope it's from, and then you can search by telescope. And so yeah, Astrobin, I think that's it. And then Yeah, I haven't used this in a while, but I think there's a way on here where you can search by telescope. And so you would search for whatever, Evo Star, and then you could see, I think it's this site, and then you could see all the images taken with that telescope. So let's see if that's it, for example. Watcher Evo Star, yeah. Yeah, that's, oh, beautiful image. Yeah, that's great. That's great scope. Okay. So Matthew says, what is your list for beginner scopes? So I need to make a better list, and one of the challenges with making lists is there's a different list for every price range, and there's a different list for every target. So you have to like have more of a matrix than a list, and maybe I should build one of those and put it on the website. Because you have a different telescope for even astrophotography. Like there's probably 3 different. If you're shooting galaxies, you might use an SCT type telescope. If you're shooting big nebula, you would use like this Evo Star that you mentioned. And then if you're shooting just regular nebula, then you might use just a regular 102 or 110 millimeter refractor for astrophotography. But the same thing goes for visual astronomy as well. So you have telescopes that are better for planets, like an SCTs, typically, like the 8SE is, would be your best beginner telescope for planets and sort of general observation. Deep sky objects would be your Dobsonians. So your best beginner deep sky object starter scope be 8-inch Dobsonian. Like this guy, for example. Yeah. So that's a good thing to remind me of. Make a matrix. It also changes every year though, because the prices change and then new telescopes come out. Anthony's saying anyone new to the hobby needs to be very aware that the key to a great astrophotography is being able to post-process the images. Yeah, that's true. I mean, most of the time I do a lot of astrophotography and don't post-process at all. I just do it with the ASI Air, and so it's done on the phone. And so sometimes I'll just literally use the preview image and then skip the post-processing altogether. But that's just me. Yeah. Do you need a photography background? Yeah, I wish I had a photography background, but I mean, photography and astrophotography are pretty different. So I don't have a regular background at all, but I suppose I could go to some. Let me just pull up Astrophotos 2022. Do I have any good ones from this year? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I mean, you can get basic astrophotos like this with, I guess the key is the right equipment. So, I think the Keji ones, I didn't do any post-processing at all except for denoising, because I didn't even bring a computer, I don't think. Oh, well, I would have if I denoised them. And so these are examples of ones where I was behind a tree. Didn't do very much processing. There's Deadpool. But none of these use PixInsight. And I think most of these are I just denoise the preview from the phone. And so that's astrophotography. But again, astrophotography is a very different hobby than stargazing. As soon as you stick a camera on a telescope, you're in a world of hurt and a world of addiction, depending on how far you take it. So, yep, everything's doubled in price. Okay, someone's saying, is Bosma 105 1000 good to see nebula and planets? So, Bosma. That's kind of weird. Let me look at that. We'll keep AstroBin open. Bosma 105 1000 telescope. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so this looks like an SCT telescope. A brand I've definitely never heard of, but it would probably function. You'd have to add a lot of things to it. It probably requires a go-to mount. So it's, yeah, so this is sort of like a little Mac. So it's got a 1000mm focal length, a 105mm aperture. Yeah, you could probably put this on an AZ GTI or something and make a good scope out of it. So the AZ GTI. Oh, man. Gotta put my textbooks away so I can type. Is this little mount here, which is Wi-Fi controlled. And so, yeah, it works pretty well with scopes like this. But I know that's kind of expensive, even though it knows I'm in Canada. This is not that different performance-wise from like a C90. Like this little guy, which you could just modify into a similar scope. See if there's a C100. Anyway, I feel like they had Celestron C127. Anyway, yeah. So it'd be similar to some of these Macs in terms of quality and performance. Okay. Read a few more questions. How are we doing on time? I'm not sure how long I've been streaming for. 47 minutes. Wow, time flies. Okay. Let's go back to just generic deals here. Let's see if we go to page 2 or 3 if there are any good ones here. So we've been through all these ones. Go to the next page. Someone keeps asking me to review this SAR Blue, but I gave my address. They haven't sent me one yet. We'll see. So here's a 130 that, the only thing this passes is the aperture, but, these mounts are not very good. No finder scopes. Or no red dot finder. Rack and pin, that's also something you want to watch out for. Not good. Yeah. Man, this one keeps showing up over and over again. Okay. Yep. Nope. Yeah, I mean, I reviewed this. If we're just looking at Saturn, one of these Astromaster 70 AZs would be good, but then you're going to get bored. But in terms of like, if you just want something to see Saturn or the moon, you can get away with one of these blue Astromasters, but I think you'd get bored. Okay. Yep, there's these guys again. We already talked about those. People seem to like this little 4SE scope. So it doesn't look like it's on sale though. Yeah, let's go back here. In photos, DSO and Milky Way look colorful, but with the eye, you can only see black and white because the eye is not sensitive enough. That's true. But if I am floating next to a nebula galaxy, will I see colors? Please answer. No, you will not. And the reason is that the objects, like any object, like if we take this remote control here, it doesn't get brighter as I get close to it. So if you were to get a spaceship and travel out to a nebula and get closer to it, it doesn't get any brighter. And so it'll still look brown, or sorry, not brown, like gray and dim to your eye. So, but it'll look bigger. If you think about it, it's like the Andromeda Galaxy. So we see the Andromeda Galaxy as, 2 million light years away. And you're like, well, won't it be cool when it's on top of us, when it collides with the Milky Way? But then the Milky Way galaxy is we're already inside it, and it's the same brightness as Andromeda, and so I feel like if Andromeda collided with the Milky Way, you would just have two Milky Ways, but they're the same brightness. Yeah. Someone's out saying, before you finish, can you choose a good telescope for intermediate experience? And so, again, we need to specify what you're using it for, and I'm going to assume it's visual astronomy. And so I think my favorite intermediate telescope would probably be a larger Dobsonian. Once if you have a beginner telescope, you're not really going to, you might not know that you're not motivated enough to drag it outside. But once you're an intermediate astronomer, you have the discipline to drag that telescope outside. So you might even go nuts and get a 16-inch Dobsonian. Something like this. So there's a good intermediate telescope. That's only 12. But anyway. So people love these. They're good for Stargaze events. The other one, if you wanted to go to, and again we're talking visual observing only, would be the Evolution series. Evolution series telescope. Let's say if you want to go with the bigger one, the 9.25, would be sort of your intermediate scope here. And the nice thing about this is it's easy to travel with because the battery is inside the case, and it's got a handle here, and it's controlled by your phone. So, yeah. Someone's saying, do you think it's worth upgrading my Skywatcher SkyMax 5-inch Mac? Upgrading the visual back to from 1.25 to 2-inch. Oh yeah, you just definitely try it. I did that. So I have one of these SCTs. I have the 8-inch, and I put the 2-inch on it. Amazing. Yeah, definitely try it. I don't know the specs on the SkyMax exactly, but if you can screw in the 2-inch visual back, definitely give that a shot. So, yeah. Okay. Again, all these telescopes failed our 5 tests here. 6 SE. Man, these are getting expensive. These used to be only like $500 or $600. Yeah. Now, but sometimes you can buy them refurbished. B&H Photo used telescopes. So I've bought a bunch of telescopes on here. And yeah, so here's the 5SE for $600, and so here's your DX StarSense DX for $319, and so the regular price on this was $400. Well, here we have it for the Amazon sale price, but I found some incredible deals on here. And some of these scopes actually pass the test. I mean, there's some garbage on here too. $30. $70 for that Astromaster. Yeah, but again, they don't pass the tests, so you're not going to get a well-rounded beginner experience there. Okay, so I'll probably hang on here for about 5 more minutes to answer some additional questions, and then I got to get back to my homework. Yeah, I guess in other news, let me see if I can go back to the webcam here. Yeah, so we republished this Learn to Stargaze for Kids book, and we just shortened the page count a little bit. Same content, though. And the reason is... Where's my mouse? Okay. There we go. Originally, the price was $20.95. Oh, let me share my screen again. Which I think was too much for most people. And so really, I hadn't advertised it yet because we're still negotiating with publishers on this one. But what we did is we knocked down the page count, and we were able to get the price down to $16.95. So that should be up in the next day or so. And that way this book, which is really an incredible book, will, you know, hopefully it'll start climbing sort of the Amazon sales rank, because we're really proud of this book. And so the fact that we haven't been able to get it into people's hands yet, you know, you can see the illustrator did a fantastic job. And this also has about 200 objects to explore. And you don't need a telescope for it. If you've got dark skies or you've got binoculars, then this book is really for you. And it says of all ages, even though it's for kids, but yeah. So look for this to come down in price in the next couple days. So that's our news there. Okay, another question here. DSO are dim because they're too far from us. No, they're dim because they're dim. Things don't get brighter when you get closer. That's just a law of physics, I guess. So the only time stars get brighter as you get closer, because they're just a point of light. They're not an extended object. But like if you were to get closer and closer to the sun, it's not going to get any brighter. It's just going to get bigger. Yeah. Things do not get brighter when you move closer to them. They get bigger. Yeah. Law of physics. Okay. So I keep glancing over here at my secondary monitor. Yeah. Yeah, this is an interesting telescope. It'd be interesting to take this little telescope, which would probably fit in your pocket. It's only 60 millimeters. But you know, it's your resolution is going to be low, but for a telescope that fits in your pocket, might be pretty good. And the other funny thing about this Sarbu telescope is the prices. I've seen this as low as like $29 and as high as like $400. Like they're really experimenting with the price to see, you know, to see what they can sell it for here. So, yeah. Here you have a 169. You've got it on this little mount. That'd actually be okay for kids. The challenge is these telescopes actually have quite a bit of magnification. You also don't have a red dot finder there. Yeah, astronomical binoculars. These need a tripod, and I don't find them particularly fun. You know, if I'm holding them, they bounce around a lot. These monopods, they're kind of funny. There are a lot of scam videos with these monopods online, saying that they can are just as powerful as like big telescopes, which is not true. Remember, the power of a telescope is determined by its aperture, and so you're always limited by this, whatever that is, 56 millimeters. Yeah. Okay. Before we go, let's just remind everyone, or I know we talked about this at the beginning, about the merch store that we just started for you guys. Let's go back to www.learntostargaze.com/store. And again, we did this for you guys. So, you know, I make money as an author. I have a YouTube channel just so that I can demo telescopes and stuff to help you guys out. But for this, we priced everything pretty much as low as we could, so that you know, you're not paying a premium for this stuff like other websites. Because I feel like that's a big problem. Like, merch is way too expensive. You know, you might be a fan of Everyday Astronaut, but his shirt is $40 or $35. So, you know, if you're a fan of us, you can get your shirt for $15.95. I'm not sure what shipping is. I think it's different by country, but anyway, the idea was that we were just going to get that as reasonable as we possibly could in terms of price. And then Mrs. Stargaze here, that's not her, that's just a model, but is working on creating new products every day. And yeah, so someone says, have a great day, Mrs. Stargaze and Mr. Stargaze. Thanks, Michael. All right. Anyway, well, I hope you enjoyed this sort of random live stream between, you know, me doing my homework here. Hopefully we'll get a video out soon. I got a mount that I need to review from All-Star Telescope. Nicholas at All-Star sent me a mount, and I don't even remember the name of it, but we're going to review it. So that's probably going to be the next video. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and I am going to sign off here, if I can find the off button. All right.